don't know you, know, but I promise you, you is a dead man walking.
You caught me off guard with the wig.
Hey, man.
Come on.
I had to go all out for this review, man.
I was saying, man, I'm like, it didn't grow that fast, did it? I'm like, wow.
I had to pull out all the stops for this one, man.
Oh, man, that's awesome, man. Love it.
This was a fun rewatch, man. I hadn't seen this movie since I was a kid. This was a good one.
Oh, you know, I watched it a couple of years ago for one of our episodes on the podcast.
Yeah, I noticed. Like, I searched. I just wanted to do a little bit of research. So, like, about an hour or two ago, I did a search on YouTube, and your podcast number 55 was like way up there for like the top searches for this movie.
And I have no idea why, because I don't know who shared it where, but I'm like, all my other videos, and I'm like, that one for some reason continuously gets hits, and I'm like, really marked for death. Okay. So, but it's a trip, man. This is definitely interesting.
It was a fun one.
Yeah, well, Steven Seagal, man, it's that late. I mean, this was 1990, so you're on the tail end of the 80s, just about over with the really crazy action films, and it was just a weird time for action movies because you had extreme action films, Die Hard, thanks to that. But it was just a weird time because some of these. Some of the Seagal action films are just so insane. I watching it again, I realized this one is actually just a little bit subdued compared to some of his other ones. I'm sorry, the hair, man, is getting me every time. I'm loving it.
Amen.
2021, I'm going to probably have to take a mortgage on my house for the amount of films that are going to be coming out then.
Yeah. Everything's all backloaded, because no one wants to bring out their movies now because they're hoping that they can get that theater money. So they're backing a lot of these movies up, their release dates.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think you're going to get very few of those films, those January films like you get, the ones where there's no confidence. Those, I think, are all going to go to streaming. So you're just going to get like big tentpole films like every weekend for like the year.
It'll be interesting to see like tentpole after tentpole after tentpole to see like which ones are gonna like really like feel the pinch and which ones are gonna be like coming out of it okay. But you have to figure you can't have blockbuster week after week after week and expect to make like a killing,
No.
Especially with the conditions A and the competition B,
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody, if you look at it, the model for years now has been front load for the weekend, and then if you get a second weekend, awesome. If not, oh well, you try to make most of your bank in that first week. That's why they promote, I think, so heavy versus like back in my day. I turned old in 2 days, my birthday, so but
happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. But what I was going is like when I was born, it is 75. But if you look at that, just the dawn of the blockbusters, films ran for months at the theater. And I mean, like,
and someone older than you would say films ran for years. It's all relative.
Yeah, I mean, because, it matches with how many screens you have too. I mean, back when Jaws came out, you had a lot more single or only 2-screen theaters. You didn't have the huge multiplexes. So of course you had less places to see it. So the demand was higher. And now, you got them everywhere. You got 13, 14, 25 screen theaters. I don't think that's why you don't quite get as many of those huge films like you used to, because I mean, they're still big, but you just got a lot more screens, so they can pack a lot more butts in the seats.
And you also have like home video didn't start
Mhm.
until like maybe the late 70s or into the 70s.
Yeah,
So before that, you just made all your money off of the theaters, basically, you know?
right, right.
So,
Home video didn't explode until really the late 70s, early 80s. So,
yeah.
and then that took off, and then they were like, oh, hey, I could take my $100,000 film, toss it on VHS, which became the format out of the wars. And yeah, I can make some money back. You know, why go to the theater? I'll just dump them on VHS, mass produce them, and they made their money back. So that's why, yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting though to see what'll happen. Also with the streaming now, you have some big films now coming out to streaming, some original films coming out to streaming. It's been building up over the last few years, and now you've got Amazon, Netflix, you know, plus like HBO Max and Disney Plus, and they're doing their big films now, re-release stuff. But you know, I wouldn't put it past them when they start getting new, you know, start releasing new stuff. I don't think it'll go away, the theater experience, but I have a feeling it's going to shrink back down when they get to these medium tier and small tier films, to where we're not even going to release them to the theater. We're just going to dump them to our own streaming channel, which pretty much every studio has now.
Yeah. I think it's a progression, getting back to what you were saying, where it's like, where we were talking about like, hey, first movies were in theaters for years, like Gone with the Wind and stuff like that. Years you would have it in theaters because it costs a lot of money. There's no place to see it. And as technology evolved, eventually you get home movie and VHS and then DVDs. As the technology keeps progressing and the home experience becomes better, well, then the less length of time the movies are in theaters, because they can make money when they're not in theaters as well. And then also they spend more because they want to make that money as quick as possible, so they can then make the money. They can double up, make the money on home video and make the money in theaters. But like you say, as the home experience keeps getting better and better with streaming and everything like that, like, I don't know, like you're gonna get $80 million movies go straight to streaming, you know? And soon you're gonna get $100 million movies, and it's gonna be like only the $300 million movies are in theaters. It's gonna get to that point at some point, you know?
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, with, you know, home theater technology, and then add on top of it COVID, and people now 6 months, and it's going to be at least a year, a lot of people nervous or at least hesitant about getting in a big room with lots of other people. Well, now I'd rather stay home and watch that movie, and hey, I got my big screen and I don't even have to put pants on, you know. You know, so it's going to be interesting to see where things go in the next year. I mean, you got HBO Max now, which is playing up the DC stuff. They got all kinds of stuff coming.
They got a lot of marbles in that Zack Snyder bag.
Oh yeah.
If that, they better hope it's not like this tiny, rabid internet fanatic that wants to see that Snyder cut, which I think it is. I think there's like a 90% chance, or maybe even more, that it's just a tiny fraction of a loud minority that wants that Snyder cut. And if that's true, then they really they really, you know, it's a gamble, man. It's a gamble.
It is a gamble. It is definitely a gamble, but they're also moving a lot of the other DC products to their channel too. So it is a gamble.
The centerpiece is the Snyder cut.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's basically kind of like Mandalorian was for Disney Plus. Let's all face it. I mean that was the hot topic for getting Disney Plus, was for a lot of people was the Mandalorian series, and they kind of hinged a lot on that. And I think they're hinging a lot on the Snyder cut for HBO Max. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Me personally, I'm still a physical media guy. So I prefer just to buy my discs and then and watch them at home whenever, you know. Don't have to worry about the internet. But home entertainment is really going to be changing, and I think it's going to affect the theater experience too. And you know, I don't mind if it means not quite so many movies at the theater, if it means for a better experience. But I guess we'll have to see. But 2021 is definitely going to be heavy in movies.
Yeah. If I was the theater owners, I would just say, hey, like, you know, put American flags or Confederate flags and just go all pro-Trump and say, oh, it's all a conspiracy. You know, this is all like liberal politics. Theaters are saying, go all in if you want to make your money back, because that's the only way you're going to get those theaters crowded, you know? It's just like throw all your chips in the table, man. So
there you go. Maybe that's the model AMC should follow.
Yeah.
AMC should just hang a big old Confederate flag right under the letters and just go, we don't care
American
about
Movie Confederates.
There you
AMC.
Yeah, American Movie Confederates. Yeah, they could do the whole lobby up. I mean, you know,
everybody's
getting rid of those flags, so they'll have a lot of flags to get for the cheap. So
exactly. They can sell it as merchandising as well.
They could. They make T-shirts out of it, the whole 9 yards. Oh.
So much for not digressing.
Let's get to this movie. Let's get to this movie. Yeah.
No, trust me. If I digress, I can go on here for hours. So. I love talking movies. Okay, so so this is interesting because when you think about it, it always seems like there has to be, with action movies, there has to be like these dual, like butting heads of action stars for every generation. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, for me, like the one I remember as like a little kid, like from like the older people, the older men in the household, was like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris talked about it. He was like, hey, when Bruce Lee called him to the movie, he was like, hey, by the way, Bruce, who's going to win the fight? He's like, oh, I have to win the fight. It's my movie. I'm the hero. So it was funny that they were actually like buddies. There was no rivalry there. They liked each other, and they were cool. But yeah, so that didn't really last as long. Chuck Norris kept going into the 80s, you know, from that 70s era. And then from there, you had the steroid and the muscle era. And then you got Stallone and Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, classic. Yeah, classic.
That was the 80s one that I think most people remember from the nostalgia and all that. And Stallone actually entered it late because Schwarzenegger was already the big jacked up bodybuilder, but his best friend, I think Franco Columbo Jr., I think was his name, was Schwarzenegger's best friend. And then Stallone hired him to get him in shape. I think it was either for Rambo 2 or Rocky 2, but it was the movie where he first transformed his body and started looking like jacked, you know?
Right.
The minute you start getting trained by a steroid guy, they're going to tell you all the drugs and the stuff to take. I mean, not knocking them. You still have to work out hard even though you take the drugs, but they were obviously enhanced physiques. And that really, their physiques, I think, was as much to do with their success early on as the movies were. The good movies, the really good movies Stallone made was before he was an action star. His first couple Rambo movies and that other stuff. Once he started getting jacked, it was just all like mindless action movies. And then Schwarzenegger was always just like this jacked up dude. Even though I thought he made good movies because he worked with good directors, unlike Stallone, who always wanted to direct himself. So,
Schwarzenegger always managed to get someone who made him look really good, usually.
I think, despite the fact that he's not a great actor, he's been in movies I would consider great. I love Total Recall. You know, I love some Terminator movies, and he's done some good ones.
Terminator 2 is one of my all-time favorites, though I do totally enjoy Terminator. I enjoy a lot of his movies too, but especially in that kind of golden age of that kind of re-golden age of movies, the 80s. He was kind of the star. I mean, you think about Stallone being the rival guy, but I think Schwarzenegger won that rivalry just a little bit. But I think it goes what you're saying is that Schwarzenegger, I think, got people, bigger names that made him look better and got more of the right people around him than Stallone. But
I think he had
Stallone
less of an ego as well, too.
yeah, there is that too. Well, he was Mr. Universe, right? So you got to have a little bit of ego with the muscles, I guess.
No, I'm saying I think he had less of an ego.
Oh,
in his
less of an
movies
ego, yeah.
because he was able to make fun of himself, you know, in Twins and a lot of these movies. Like he wasn't afraid to be the butt of jokes. I think Stallone had more of like he had to be like this unstoppable tough guy, like in Cobra, and having all these one-liners and Judge Dredd. And like at the time, it seemed like a rivalry, but looking back, there aren't a lot of Stallone movies that I would want to rewatch. And there are a ton of Schwarzenegger movies like Predator and Total Recall and Terminator. I could pop in any day and just watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger's movies definitely have more rewatch than the Stallone films.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I like the Rambo ones, you know, the films and that, and Cobra and that, and the ones you mentioned, but at the same time, they just don't have that rewatchability that Schwarzenegger had.
Yeah.
You know, and it was kind of interesting because then you went from that in the mid 80s, and then you get Bruce Willis, who's a comedian who got cast in Die Hard, and suddenly the Die Hard formula was suddenly kind of the way people were going.
Yeah, the everyday guy, you know. You had that formula with like Keanu Reeves with Speed and The Matrix, where it's just like this guy who didn't have to have the muscles and the tough guy experience, and he could get beat up and hurt and things like that, and people still went for it. So, but yeah, then in the late '80s, that's where you get Seagal and of course Van Damme. I think '88 was the first time they both had like leading roles, and they went from the late '80s into like the mid '90s where they were like the two action stars. Did you have a preference of those two?
Actually not. I would say Van Damme, if you want to talk about a little bit more entertaining, he was a little bit more, he emotes a lot more. He's got a lot more emotion.
He emotes, period.
He emotes,
end of sentence. He emotes.
He just
stop
emotes.
there.
You know?
He emotes, full stop.
Full stop. And, you know, whereas Seagal doesn't. I mean, you know, I always like Van Damme a little bit more than Seagal because Van Damme seemed to have a little bit more variety in his stories, though both of them, if you look at the action films they're in, they're kind of a variation of the exact same thing. You know, that formula that's really evident. I mean, you get that with almost any action film, but with theirs, especially like Seagal films during that time, you know, they just seem to follow a real specific formula. I mean, you could almost set your, you know, a metronome to the beat of, okay, he's going to lose a partner, family member, somebody. He's going to, you know, either get injured and go into a coma or just retire and try to hide. Then he's going to come back and fight, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. He didn't have a lot of range.
No,
yeah.
No, and emotion for sure. There was very little on Seagal's part ever.
Yeah. It's it's kind of funny. Their careers kind of paralleled in certain ways, and that they both started virtually in '88 with their first lead roles, and they got to the mid '90s before they started going to like direct to video. They both had, I think, like one mainstream hit where it wasn't just like action hero movie; it was like legitimate hit. I think for Seagal that was Under Siege, and and then for Van Damme, I think it was Time Cop.
Yep.
And those were their like mainstream hits, but pretty much like it was like action movies. Yeah, you might open number one, but then kind of fade away. One big hit, and basically direct to video. There was one interesting story, but there's like 18 different versions of it where they were supposed to do a movie together. And some versions have it, no one wanted to be the bad guy. No one wanted to lose the fight. Van Damme was too coked up. While they were having a meeting, he was flirting with girls, blondes at the next table. There's just so many variations. Ironically enough, 90% of these variations all come from Van Damme. I don't think I've heard anything from Seagal. It's just all different versions. And every time like Van Damme has an interview, he has another version of why it didn't happen. But the most interesting one I heard was from him was, this was like from an MTV interview or something. That the original version of Demolition Man was supposed to be Van Damme and Seagal, but then they didn't do it. Then it got rewritten for Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone. Yeah.
I'm glad they went that direction, actually, with the way the story is and that. I love Demolition Man, and yeah, I'm kind of glad they went that direction versus Seagal and Van Damme, because yeah, Snipes and Stallone really make that movie. So
yeah, they actually have some kind of personalities. So.
They've got personalities. They had chemistry. You know, Snipes looks like he's just having fun in that movie, and he's just jacked. And you know, Stallone's having fun, and yeah, I don't think. I think Seagal and Van Damme, if they were both in it, it wouldn't be nearly as entertaining.
Yeah. It's funny because I think Demolition Man, that was kind of a turning point for Snipes, where he started to become a action hero. Yeah,
that was one where they I think it put him in a different light with producers, and they started like going, oh, he could be marketable as an action guy, especially going head to head with Stallone. You know, and I love his role in that movie, actually, quite a bit, his performance, and I can see why that was kind of his. They're like, hey, we can cast this guy as an action guy. All right. And so
he legitimately knew martial arts, and like you said, he got really jacked for that role.
Yeah, the fight scenes are great. I love the martial arts and just the action scenes in that as well. You know, they were just done well, and I honestly think if they had those two leads, Seagal and Van Damme, it just wouldn't have worked right. It works right with Demolition Man. It's why people still talk about it today. I mean, that film is you know, entertaining and getting a little closer to home than we might think in some respects.
I am not using a shell when I poop. I don't care what anybody says. No shell method for me, man. I don't care if all the rednecks buy all the toilet paper and they sell them out of their trucks. I don't care. I will use something else.
Not using the seashells, no.
Not using the shells, man. I don't care how many graphs and, like, you know, Reddit subreddits have like how these shells actually work. Don't care. Not using it, man.
Though they did have the virtual sex thing, I think, you know, predicted there. So, you know, you had that going on.
That's true. That's true. Especially with the COVID stuff going on, virtual is safe now. So,
you know, you're looking at that going, that's not that far off. And, you know, when Taco Bell a couple of years ago won that it had the best, healthiest menu out of all the fast food wars, some people were going, see?
You know, the funny thing about that is, depending on where you saw the movie, is who won.
Yeah,
it was different depending on
yeah, I heard that there was like Taco Bell in some places, like Burger King or something.
KFC Burger. It was another one that won. I don't remember for sure, but yeah, it was depending on where you saw it, like who won that war. God, it's just whoever paid the most, I guess, for that market or something,
right?
That country that it played in. So, but yeah, the fun thing about Seagal was, like, this was like the third straight movie he did that opened up #1 at the box office. He started off like, you know, a man on fire. But the funny thing is, like, even when, like, I put up the poll, by the way, I'll put my Twitter down here. You can vote for the next poll for the next movie. But when I put up this poll to say, hey, which Seagal film do you guys want us to review? And I put up the titles, honestly, they were indistinguishable to me. I didn't know what movie was what. I'm reading these titles, I'm like, wait a minute, was that the one when... I didn't know. I had no fucking clue. So I kind of remixed the names a little bit, and I want you, within 10 seconds after I tell you these names, tell me which of these movies are actual Steven Seagal movies, okay?
Oh, okay. I may gonna fail this one, but all right.
Deadly Weapon, I Am the Law, Left for Dead, Quest for Justice, Deadly Weapon, Out to Kill, Mark for Dead, Lust for Vengeance.
Wow. Lust for Vengeance. Mark for Death.
No, that was Mark for Dead, I said.
Oh, for Dead. I'm sorry.
It's a trick question. None of
It
them
is
are
a
real
trick.
movies.
I don't think any of. Well, Lust for Revenge.
Lust for Vengeance is actually my movie. But yeah.
I thought it sounded familiar. I'm like, is that Seagal?
No,
I thought it sounded familiar.
That's one of my movies. I figured I'd just throw that in there. But yeah, my point being is these names are so generic. It's you could literally take all of these movies and mix up the titles and they would flow seamlessly because in every single Steven Seagal movie, he is out for justice, he is marked for death, he is hard to kill, and he is above the law. Yeah. There isn't one movie he made that doesn't apply to like his character or like the plot, you know?
You could go one step further if you really took all 4 movies and take any like 3 scenes and cut them together and the film would still make sense. You could combine just scenes from various films, just put them together like a random puzzle, like ad libs and like Steven Seagal film ad libs, and it'd probably still make sense because you're right, those films were all the titles were generic and his stories were pretty much the same. I mean, there was some slight variation, but he was pretty much the same character.
Pretty much. Speaking of just chopping them up, Al Adamson has like this box set out now, and there's like this documentary on him. I haven't seen the documentary. I've already seen his movies. I don't need to see them again. But he was known for just like recutting his movies over and over again, creating new movies. He would have a field day with Seagal's film library. He would turn those 4 movies into like 20 different movies, where he used to chop his movies up.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, the only thing that would be off on continuity is what costume he wore that, for the scene. That'd be about the only...
He would generally dressed in black, ponytail. I don't think he looked that different in any of them.
No, the slick back hair with the ponytail, with the small ponytail, which...
Yeah. I think maybe there was one where he got the ponytail cut off. Yep. I think there was one when he was in a coma, and then he had a beard, but then he immediately shaved it, in the next scene. So...
Oh, yeah, he had a beard. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it didn't last long, though.
It didn't look right either.
No, it didn't.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say if you want to go through the movie, but no, go ahead. You want to make a point first?
Oh yeah, I was just saying that Seagal. It was one of those where you don't. Seagal films are ones, and I'm sure we'll touch on it more, but are ones that you don't go into for the acting or even his performance necessarily. You're there for the action.
Yeah.
Pretty much. The story. A lot of them made bank, so it showed you that the story really was kind of secondary to just you wanting to see him beat the crap out of guys,
I actually thought that in a lot of his movies, the bad guys were really entertaining.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the bad guy in this one is really good too. So.
I love the bad guys in this one. Even though they suffer from 90s writing, I love the performances of the villains in this quite a bit. I'm like, I want to see more of these characters. I don't want to see Seagal. I want to watch more of the Voodoo King. I want to see more of him because he's far more interesting than Seagal's DEA agent, who I guess wanted to retire, though there wasn't really any emotion in his performance, so I couldn't quite feel, anything of why he was that adamant about retiring.
Yeah, they just needed to put it in there. I mean, there's really no motivation.
They had to give some reason for him to go back home.
Yeah, and he had to be the reluctant hero in some way, so he had to retire for him to be reluctantly saving the day. It's funny that you say that because in your previous point, I'll put the name of the movie below, but like I said, the names are so generic, I don't remember. But there was one movie where he was walking around looking for a girl, And I think like the photo he had, she was like naked in the photo, or like she was having sex in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen this woman? She's like shoving this naked photo of this girl banging. It's like, and he was going all the places looking for him. And there was this guy that was the main bad guy. He was this drug addict, and he was doing all these drugs and running all over the place. And that guy was so good in the movie, and I loved his performance. Then I read up that Seagal actually made them edit out a lot of his scenes because he felt he was being overshadowed. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? His scenes were so good. And then I found out like there could have been more of him. I was like, fuck, man. But yeah, it's something like when you give a good character actor some freedom to just ham it up, you know, and just be heel, they can really like, I wouldn't say it's easier, but there's a lot of like okay actors that once you give them a chance to play like a bad guy and give them some decent screen time, they will just like blow it out the water, you know? So.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it depends on the director, but especially in films like this, the villains usually seem to have more freedom, or the performers of the bad guy seem to have a lot more freedom to kind of make it their own. And yeah, they're far more entertaining usually, especially in Seagal films. But I mean, you know, as much as everybody loves, just not to go off tangent, but kind of in parallel, for everybody who loves Bruce Willis, people love Hans Gruber more. I mean, you know, in a lot of these action films, even with the Seagal ones, a lot of people dig the villain more than the hero because the hero is the hero. You're like, okay, that guy. But this guy, you know, he just goes off the rails and can do anything, and it's always a more genuine, more fun performance. It's one that you're just like, you don't not say you get behind the bad guy who's the murderer killing people, but at the same time, far more interesting and more a little more layer to him than your one-note hero, which you get out of Seagal almost every time.
Yeah. Well, I think there's twofold. One, in these action movies, with the exception of like the Bruce Willises of the world, these guys aren't great actors. So therefore their physique or their fighting background or their star power, they're not necessarily there for their acting. And then the other thing is that you get more genuine actors in those roles. You know, so, and they have more freedom, and they're the ones that are controlling the action. Right. The good guys are just reacting to what they're doing. So what they're doing is more interesting, and it's just them reacting to it. You know, it's more fun to see somebody do something crazy than to see someone come and clean up the mess, you know? So.
Yeah. Yeah. Or side, you know, the supporting characters around action heroes always tend to be more interesting as well. I mean, here, you know, sometimes, well, not all the time, but sometimes. I mean, like in this film, but I'll admit it, I'm a sucker for Keith David, so I'll watch him in anything. But getting to see him in here, and you know, he seems to have a little bit more of an interesting story. And then you get the one Jamaican cop who ends up showing up. I really liked his character too, more so than Seagal in this one.
Yeah, let's actually just start going through the movie. So it opens up with a nice action sequence, and I don't know if like this is a rib on Seagal, but they had to have seen the dailies with him running, and for them to start off the movie with a running scene from Seagal was just like the biggest F you to him in the world. I mean, he runs with his hands. He's running limp wrist, and his hands go side to side instead of back and forth. And he just holds his wrists like this, like he has like these mandolins that he's controlling with his hands and his hand. And then it's just like, it's like, what are you, dude? You're an athlete, right? Like, come on.
Especially since he's getting smoked by Danny Trejo. You know, I mean, Danny is like gone, and you're right. He's not running like your normal, like you would kind of expect your action hero to run.
Like your normal person.
Like your normal person. Yeah, I have no idea what was up with his run. At all.
But like you said, he takes down Danny Trejo, and there's this whole big drug thing going on. And I guess they didn't shoot in Mexico, but it looked pretty close. I mean, they're in California, so Yeah, I guess there's some locations that look pretty similar, but it felt seedy. It felt dirty. It felt like there was atmosphere to it. I thought that was pretty cool, and I kind of enjoyed the whole intro thing, setting him up as a character. Like you said, the cliche thing of his partner getting killed and all that stuff going on. Any other, you want to expand on that? Any other thoughts on the opening?
No, just that, you know, people talk about tropes with these action films and the gratuitousness of them. And this film, within the first 10 minutes, I think hits all of them. So, I think it hits all any trope of gratuity in an action film in the late 80s, early 90s. This film hits about all of them, all within 10, 15 minutes. So
listen, I will strongly disagree with you on a lot of things. First of all, Seagal had this incredibly great acting scene where he delved into his character, deep into his emotions, where he sat there monotone talking to a priest. Like he's basically just reading the script off camera.
I've lied. I've slept with informants. I've taken drugs. I've falsified evidence. I did whatever I had to do to get the bad guys. And then I realized something. That I had become what I most despise.
Father, I banged a lot of chicks. I did a lot of drugs. I was a bad cop. I think I'm done. I need to retire. I want to confess. It's just like, what? It's like, forget character development. We're going to read you the character development instead of showing it to you. We're not even going to tell it to you. We're going to read it to you because he's not even acting the scene. He's just reading lines. It was just, oh, God.
Well, that's what I meant. I never felt from him his motivation to retire. I never felt that any emotion at all from him of why he was actually doing it, or any genuine emotion. It was like you look like you're feeling the same as you were when you were fighting the guys and blowing away Terry Weigel. You know, it's like, why? Okay, you know, just go on vacation. But he had no emotion that he was actually broke up over his partner dying. You're right, that confessional scene, oh my God. It's like, I'm just like, wow, man, that's how you confess? Oh, I did anything to get the job done, but now I'm done.
Yeah,
man. Oh, okay.
I get more emotional like eating ice cream than he does, you know, like doing anything, you know?
I was cutting onions the other day. I got more tears or emotion than, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't guess like he's leaving his job, his partner just died. You wouldn't guess any of those things based on the way he performed that scene. And here's a bit of the most realistic thing in the movie, unfortunately, is he gets his partner killed. He kills a bunch of people. He does a terrible job. He blows the mission. Everything's all fucked. And his boss says,
there was nothing you could have done to save Chico. These things happen when you're in deep. You know that. Take a leave. With pay. Hell, take a month. Take 2.
Hey, you're a good cop. Why not give you a paid vacation? Yeah, that's a little too realistic with what's going on in the world today. You know, unfortunately, that is the most realistic thing in this movie, you know?
That is true. The captain going, don't retire. Just take a couple months off. Never mind, you blew away all these people. Just take a couple months off. You come back, you'll be fine. You'll be ready to go.
And he specifically said, paid vacation.
Paid vacation, yeah.
I was like, oh, God, that hit a little too close to home, you know, a little too close. So he goes on his paid vacation. And like you mentioned, we see Keith David. They go to Chicago is where the main part of the movie takes place. Keith David, I guess, is his old buddy, football coach now. And Keith David from The Thing, They Live. Really good, like, secondary action guy in the 80s. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, you didn't have a lot of black leads. I think you had, who's the guy from Action Jackson that was in the Rocky movies? Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers. There we go.
Yeah,
Whew.
yeah.
Wow. I can't believe
But aside from Carl Weathers, it's just like you get a lot of black guys. They're the secondary buddy to the main lead. And Keith David was that in The Thing and They Live, and he was that in here, and he was good in those movies, and he's good here too as well. So,
let's not forget They Live. I love him in They Live. So,
yeah, They Live in The Thing. Both Carpenter movies that helped him as well. The only person I thought that played the secondary role more, or maybe a little bit better, was Danny Glover. But aside from that, and that's the only cliche I think they left out of this one, is that there was no black guy saying he wants to retire. And he had two people there too. He had two black sidekicks, but neither of them wanted to retire, damn it.
We didn't have that where they were mentioning how soon they were going to be to retire, or
even his partner that died at the beginning, even though he wasn't black, they could have had him say, "Man, after this mission, I want to retire." That would have been perfect, man.
It was missing that one trope, of somebody saying, this is my last whatever. I'm out after that. I'm done. I'm sorry, man. After this, our debt is paid, and then he dies. You don't have that in here, so
no.
I guess it avoided that one.
Yeah. Unfortunately for us, because I think we would have liked that.
Yeah.
So. No, did I cut you off, or you good?
Nope.
Okay. So I'll let you expand more because you wanted to talk about this earlier, and I cut you off again.
Okay.
But
no worries.
Predator 2 came out the exact same year as this, also done by 20th Century Fox. And they also have this inner city gang war between these Jamaican drug lords going up against this rival gang, and they're taking their violence on the streets. And what was it with 1990 and 20th Century Fox executives with Jamaican drug lords? What's the deal?
I wish I knew. These were the two probably the most high-profile films that had that, but you had that short run where Jamaicans were and ended up being they moved kind of away from the Mexican and cartels to the Jamaican drug lords in a number of crime drama. You even got it into crime action films and the lower budget stuff. Voodoo and the whole idea of voodoo. I think I'm not sure if it was just because it was the hot topic in the news, or if it was maybe the fact of they thought maybe this was a way they could kind of work in a potential supernatural angle, but not go full supernatural, with the whole voodoo angle. Because you get that in Marked for Death, where they're performing a number of voodoo rituals, so where they're like, well, we're kind of going there, but not. But, that's just a guess. I'm not sure what was up with them. Like maybe someone just thought, hey, it would be really cool if we make the Jamaicans the bad guys. I mean, they have drugs too, right? But it is very evident, especially you watch in the early 90s, late 80s, that voodoo they became.
I think this one had opiates specifically, but two of the executives, it's all the same shit.
Yeah, opio, your crack, cocaine, whatever it is,
No, obia. Obia is a different form of.
I'm sorry, obia.
Yeah.
I apologize.
There's obia, there's voodoo, and there's some other stuff.
I'm sorry. Yeah, obia. Any variation of voodoo, though. I mean, because you had, you had the movie Angel Heart in there.
That's true. That's another one. Yeah.
That's another one that featured voodoo quite prominently that I watched for Lelisa Bonet. I fully admit it.
There was a big falling out with her and Cosby when she did that movie too. I think she ended up getting kicked off the show because we know Cosby is such a high character guy, and he only cares about women, and he doesn't want to see them exploited in any way. He just wants to help nurture them and look over them. You could even see when they're sleeping, he would just he'd hover over them and just make sure that they were safe and warm. And even if he had to cuddle and, take off his clothes so they're warmer together. And,
that's how you prevent hyperthermia, right?
Exactly.
But voodoo was just in general in cinema for a while, was kind of that, I don't know
Well,
if it was
the funny thing is, it wasn't cinema originally with the zombie movies.
Right.
Like the first zombie movies. I think it was the one with not Boris Karloff.
Bela
Lugosi.
Yeah.
I think he in White Zombie
Mm-hmm.
back in like 32. I think that was the first zombie movies. And zombie movies started off with a lot of voodoo, and then once the zombie trope changed, you know, from voodoo to like the Romero type zombies, then the voodoo stuff kind of went away. From there was the rainbow, the serpent in the rainbow, or something like that.
Yeah,
that was a voodoo one. But
I love
that. I think that was like the last one, and then we get this stuff in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, Serpent in the Rainbow was the last one, and even then they it played with the idea of voodoo, but they also gave a little bit of scientific grounding with it. I love Serpent in the Rainbow. I think it's an underappreciated film. But also, yeah, voodoo kind of faded, and then it started coming back again. Why, I'm not sure. You know, maybe because they just producers thought that would pull people in, because you know, the caricatures that they were portraying in these films were visually interesting, possibly, or, you know, they could do a lot of stuff with it. And like I said, they could touch on supernatural without actually going supernatural.
Or maybe somebody just made a voodoo doll of an executive and started poking it with pins.
There could be that too. It's hard to say. I mean, you know, maybe they thought they were being edgy or something, going, "Oh, we're doing something different. It's not Hispanic drug lords. No, it's Jamaican drug lords."
Oh, brilliant.
Completely different type of drug lords, you know.
It's like somebody and he goes up against Colombian drug lords. Oh, come on. We've seen that too many times. What are you talking about? No. I've got a brilliant idea, sir. He goes up against Jamaican drug lords. Johnson, yeah. I like your forward thinking.
I like that, Johnson, because then we could do a location shoot in Jamaica and I wouldn't have to pay for it myself. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've covered that thoroughly, maybe.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I like the characters. I like the performance of the villains. I just got a kick out of the twist of the villain.
No twist yet.
Okay, no twist yet. Oh, sorry.
We'll get to the twist.
Okay.
Let's go through the movies sequentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite character in this movie, by far, Screwface. The reason I'm wearing this goddamn wig, sweating my face off.
Screwface is awesome.
And I'm going to throw in some Screwface quotes as we move along with this movie. But his first one, when he comes on the scene, everybody want go heaven, but nobody want dead.
Everybody want go heaven, nobody want dead.
And he did the thing with his eyes too, that just
he just like leans in like everybody want go heaven, but nobody want dead. I just love, he just hams it up so much, man.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, if you take away the whole intimidating voodoo, Jamaican, tough black guy, this is such a flamboyant gay performance. It's just such a queer performance, man. And I mean that in the best possible way. But if you take away the tough guy element of it, he is just like sashaying around this entire movie, man. He's just sashaying and like hamming up his pretty little heart out.
And don't forget, you know, his staff he continually walks around with.
Yeah. His phallic symbol.
He's swinging himself around, you know.
It's like Eddie Murphy in Raw, where he's using the mic as his schlong, just swinging it around the stage. He's just rubbing it and stroking it and shoving it in guys' faces all the time. It's the queerest performance in the world, man. It is just over the top. But But yeah, so yeah, we get his introduction. We establish the whole like inner city battle of drug lords and, you know, the whole thing going on. And they cheat. They cheat with the supernatural stuff. They make you think it's totally supernatural, everything going on, but they play it halfway. Some stuff is like, okay, that has to have been supernatural because he kills this girl who's trying to do some, I forgot what you call that Latin style of their equivalent to voodoo. It's sans something, I forget the name of it. But she starts doing that to him, but then he suddenly just knows she's doing it and goes and kills her. So that implies there's something supernatural, but then the big twist at the end, it makes it seem like, okay, everything is not supernatural. So like you said, they're playing it halfway. I think you kind of said that earlier, and that's exactly what they're doing. But we get them, the battle goes on, there's some killings, we establish the main bad guys, Screwface, we establish the gang war, and we see our reluctant hero and his call of duty, where it's just like, hey, is he gonna come in and save the day? Any thoughts on this section of the movie?
You know, I had the rough part because this is where he meets up with Keith David too, and then you got the war starting, and they get kind of caught up in the middle. And yeah, I don't know. I like the idea with the battling of the voodoo, where, like you said, they're hitting with
the battling of the mystic arts.
Yeah, the battling of the mystic arts. The Colombians call upon their own priestess, and I'm like, oh, now we're getting into some stuff here. I could, you know, I could get into this, but that doesn't last long.
It ends too abruptly.
No, let's also not. we unfortunately, I couldn't ignore it because it was glaring. Looking at it through 2020, no pun intended, eyes. How the fact of the Jamaicans were on school grounds selling pot to the kids, but all the kids were white.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there, oh, come on. Like, seriously, you're going, I'm like, you know, and then, yeah, we get the drug.
Hold up. You want subtlety in a movie like this?
No, but it's just, it was one of those glaring things that, no, I'm not expecting subtlety, but it was just one of those things where you're just like, wow, okay. Like, I expected it, but at the same time, I'm just sitting there going, there's many ways you could have handled this, and you guys went the worst way possible.
Well, I mean, honestly, it could have been worse because there were two black guys that were good guys in the movie.
That's true.
If they didn't have that, it could have been a lot worse.
You're right, and it almost felt like they did that on purpose. Going, oh, look at us! Look, he's got two buddies, and they're both black. Look at, because we are talking 1990 here, and yeah, it's
it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse. Yeah, the whole gang wars. You know, one of those things where, yeah, there's no suspension of disbelief with these films, but at the same time, what they do get away with as far as fighting goes with him, especially when you get into the car driving into the jeweler place.
Oh, hang on. I don't want to get to that yet.
Okay.
You're jumping too far ahead in the movie.
Sorry.
Just one last thought on this,
Yeah.
in that the LA riots were in 92, so this definitely could have been a lot worse because it was not a great time. And you had the OJ thing. This movie gets a pass. You know?
It does.
It gets a pass on a curve.
They're kind of on the lower end of the bell curve, but they still get a passing grade.
Yeah. In a vacuum, no. In context, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we get another Screwface scene.
The warriors. Yes, sir. Conquerors. Respect.
I and I.
The Almighty has given I and I his hand. His rod of correction I hold. My mama loser.
Uno.
Let no man here fear for his own life.
This and that.
If a man commit a crime against you,
Yada, yada, yada.
he must be paid back 1,000 times.
Jiba, jiba, jabba.
Who you fear? Him. I mean.
Amen.
Let no man here steer from the path I have prepared.
He's just saying all this gibberish.
I know.
And he's like Like, this is the guy's face, and this is him.
Take it.
He's like right in their faces.
And the streets out there belong to you, no.
He's like, I'm like, just kiss him. Just fucking kiss him.
Take it! Take it!
And he's just like spouting this like gibberish at everybody. And like, he leaves the room and they're like, yeah!
True. Yes.
I'm like, what the fuck was that scene about? So basically, this is what happens. Just to set up the scene, the Jamaicans kill a bunch of their rival members. One guy gets caught by Seagal. They have a Italian mob guy working for them, and the Italian mob guy gets the Jamaican guy out of jail, and the Jamaican guy goes back. I think his name is Monkey. Mm-hmm. Just after I said they get a pass, his name is Monkey.
J-Lax, Monkey there with us again.
But let's not dwell on that, I guess.
No.
They get Monkey out of jail, and they're all celebrating, and then Screwface just literally just walks out of nowhere into the scene, and then just walks out of the scene after yelling a bunch of gibberish. And after he leaves the room, they just like all start just like pause for a second, and they just start yelling and cheering. I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch?
It's definitely a movie you need subtitles, because at one hand, yeah, you have Screwface who does a lot of gibberish throughout the film, and then you have Seagal who can't enunciate anything. So you know, a lot of his lines are like, and I'm just like, what?
Seagal definitely he has that kind of the Clint Eastwood,
mm-hmm.
the Charles Bronson,
yeah.
Where it's like, if people mumbled like that in real life, they'd be weirdos. But if they do it in movies and you just have the close-ups when they're doing it, it kind of comes off cool in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, if people actually mumble their way through life like that, it'd be like, what? You just be like constantly leaning in. And it's like, what?
If it was like actual words that you could understand a lot more of, I don't think it would matter with Seagal at all. And you know, as far as Screwface goes, didn't matter what he said. The way he said it, I was like, yeah,
that's it.
Like,
just the way he said
like,
it.
Yeah, I don't care. He could have been reading ingredients off of something. I'll be like, yeah, I'll kill for you. Yeah.
I think you nailed it on the head right there, man. It doesn't matter what he's saying; it's how he's saying it. Enough said. So here we get like the soap opera element of the movie. Yeah. Where like after he gives that whatever speech it was, they decide it's time to go kill Seagal because he captured Monkey. So they shoot up his house, and the next minute of this movie after they shoot up the house was one of the most melodramatic minutes in like cinema history, because they shoot up the house. Of course, they don't hit him. A million shots in the house, they miss every one of them. And here comes his sister, whoever that lady is he's staying with.
Yeah, it's his sister.
And then she picks up the niece, and in slow motion, she has the niece in her hand, and there's like a bullet wound on her shoulder. Johnny, they hurt my baby.
Johnny, they hurt my baby.
And then cut to like a pull of the curtain in the
privacy curtain, yeah.
The privacy curtain in the hospital. And she's in the hospital bed with like the things hooked up to her. And then he has this weird line. I don't want to harp on it, but I do. Where he's yelling at the doctor, because of course you have to yell at doctors in movies. Like, you know, it's like, God damn it. Yeah. So he's yelling at the doctor, and he's like, money isn't a consideration. I'm like, what?
And money isn't a consideration.
Money isn't a consideration? Don't you mean like money isn't an object, or money isn't a concern? Because consideration would kind of mean like you're the one, like, you know? It's like you're receiving something, you know? But
Yeah,
you have to pay him. He's not paying you. You can't tell him money isn't a consideration. He has to tell you that. You know, you have to say money isn't a factor, or money isn't an issue, or money isn't an object. He's like, money isn't a consideration. You give her the best service ever. It's like, wait a minute, you know?
You should treat her like,
damn right money's a consideration. You gotta pay your fucking bills or she's gonna be out in the street, you know? It's like,
treat her like the president or something. I was just like,
yeah.
It's like, what?
Let me tell you something, Doc. You treat this girl like she's the president of the United States.
I mean, it's the only, we got to give credit. It's the only time Seagal actually gives a little emotion. Not a lot, but yeah, that whole doctor scene. And then his sister's like, oh, this is your fault, Johnny. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what type of business your brother, what kind of, you know, you're the one that put him in the house. It's like,
well, hey, they have to follow the tropes. But you're right. That second line was just as good as consideration. You treat her like the president or some.
Yeah. And he's trying to get all intimidating, and I'm like, dude, that's the doctor from Terminator 2. Don't do that. He's used to that intimidation already.
Yeah, and of course, like after the consideration and the presidential line, then they slow-mo walk out of the hospital, like side by side, him and Keith, like, shoulder to shoulder.
We're gonna,
it's like going into action.
Yeah, this is action time now. This was the line. This was the line that was drawn. Yeah. Never mind. Until then, because what we didn't mention is that Seagal's character Hatch, he was trying to play off the drug battle the whole time until this point.
Oh yeah, Keith was constantly.
Keith wanted to go after him.
Yeah, he wanted to go after him the whole time. But Seagal was playing the reluctant hero. He was like, no, let it go. You're right. So they built up to this moment. It was melodramatic. I'm making fun of it, but you're absolutely right. They built up to it because Keith David was telling him telling him let's go, and he was saying no. And this was the moment that pushed him over the edge. As much as I make fun of it, I loved it, but just in a campy way.
It is
not in the way they wanted me to love it, but I still loved it nonetheless. And then we get, like you said, they're going for action. And the next action scene we get is, and again, I have another gripe with this scene, but I'll set it up first. He breaks into the hotel where the mafia guy is staying, and he breaks down the door, kicks out the hookers. And I'm telling you, one of these hookers was a 10. I just wish she was on screen for a few more seconds. She had the fakest tits in the world, but her body was just so tight. I was like, oh my God. So he kicks him out the scene. Hey, they could have been wallpaper in the scene, man. I don't know why he had to kick him out. But he kicks him out the scene, roughs up the guy, and then a Jamaican guy comes out the bathroom or somewhere. And I'm trying to picture what was going on in this hotel room before Seagal went in there. Because you have this guy, this mafia guy, in like panties, it looks like. And he has this one girl in a dominatrix outfit and this other girl in her underwear, and they're laying on the bed. And then Seagal breaks in, kicks them out. And there comes this fully dressed Jamaican guy, like out of the bathroom running at them. Like, what was the Jamaican guy doing in the room? Like, was he just like taking a shit in the toilet or something?
He got to the party late, so he had to go to the bathroom first, and then, he was maybe going to join in. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, what? Obviously, he's there to move along the plot, but it's like hard to try to figure out like how he fit into that little orgy, or like, was he going to join in? Because it seemed like they were the orgy was well underway. They were all naked. He was fully dressed. Like, you're right. Maybe he came late and did some coke in the bathroom, but. Why does he have to break up the hotel room? What does the hotel owner have to do with his beef with the drug lord? Like, why punish the owner of the hotel because you have a beef with the guy staying there? It's like, come on, respect the person's property. He didn't do anything to you. He has nothing he's trying to make a living. He's trying to, feed his kids, and you're like destroying his hotel room. But Well, yeah, and Seagal's acting comes out here because we have the first of his one-liners that he has in the movie, and I think the first one. Well, first of all, the guy on IMDb, the gangster guy, his name is Jimmy Fingers.
Yeah.
Then he's like, "You don't fuck with Jerry Fingers." So I'm not sure if like IMDb got it wrong or he got his name wrong.
He may have just probably pronounced. He may have just pronounced it wrong because I think they called him Jimmy Fingers earlier in the film.
But he was like, "You don't fuck with Jerry Fingers."
Yeah.
I'm fucking Jerry Fingers! Jerry Fingers! Jerry Fingers! Jerry Fingers! Jerry Fingers!
I'm like, what? Did they just like not catch it and leave it in there? How do you get your own name wrong? But the first of his one-liners is,
I'm a made fucking man! God made man.
Completely monotone. So come on, man. Give a little, like a smirk or something, or just like a snarl or any kind of emotion. An emotion that you're happy you killed him, an emotion that you're angry you killed him. It's just like so matter of fact. Oh well, God made man. So
Yeah,
like,
that's Seagal. That's Seagal, you know.
it's a decent line, but the delivery was just like terrible. And then he kills the Jamaican guy.
Well,
and then he goes down and
he didn't quite kill the Jamaican guy.
Screwface killed me 1,000 deaths worse than you know. Yeah? Find him your fucking self.
the Jamaican guy kills himself.
He kills himself. Yeah.
So he tells the Jamaican guy, "Hey, I'm gonna ride around, and everyone's gonna see you riding with a cop, or you could just tell me where Screwface is." He's like, "Screwface, I kill me 1,000,000 times worse," and some shit like that.
And then he just jumps through a window.
Jumps through a window. And then Seagal goes in the car with Keith David, and he was like, "What happened? One thought he was invisible, the other thought he could fly." Keith David's like, "So?" And then he just says this quick neck snap, where it's like, you think he's gonna come out emotional after the neck snap. He was like, "They were both wrong."
Dude, that's the trailer line. When that trailer played in theaters, they used that scene in every single trailer.
Why?
Because I don't know.
It's a good line, but like
it is.
He's so emotionless, man. He just says like, "Emote, give me something."
Well,
One thought he was invincible, the other thought he could fly.
so?
They were both wrong. They were both wrong. They were both wrong.
Have you ever seen the Simpsons episode with the guy who plays like the Schwarzenegger knockoff?
Yeah.
McBain.
Yeah, McBain.
And then he's playing like the Atom Man or something.
Yeah.
And then there's this line where it's like, "Up and atom," and he's like, "Okay, I got it. Up and at them." So he's like, "Up and atom." He's like, "Okay, I got it. Up and at them." It's like, I envision like that's the director talking to Seagal in like every scene, you know?
Up and atom.
Up and at them.
Up and atom.
Up and at them.
Up and atom.
Up and at them.
Better.
It's like that's Seagal with all of these lines. In my mind, that's all I'm envisioning.
You're sitting there and you're going, "Okay, Seagal, you get these. This is your moment in this car with Keith David. You give these two lines, the invincible line, the fly line, and then you just nail it. You bring it home, and after about the 8th take or 10th take, he's just like, "Yeah, that's good enough. Let's move on." No, that was good. That was good, Steven. We're good. We're good.
I can't see someone seeing that take and being like, "That's the one." It had to have been like 1,000,000 takes that they just gave up, because it's just like, whew, no emotion, man, none.
No.
Any other things to add to that section?
No. I mean that was kind of, things start to pick up. So I enjoy some of the play in there as well. But again, I just wanted more Screwface. So.
Yeah. So we have a Screwface scene coming up. So they're playing dominoes and everything's all good and well. And then here comes the messenger. And then he's like, They killed him.
Mister dead? Who do it, the white boy Hatcher?
He was like, yeah. And then it was like, uh-oh, attention. Then he kept playing dominoes for like a few seconds. Then all shit broke loose. He just flipped over the table, broke off the table leg, punched out the guy with the table leg. He's like, if you don't kill him.
And if you can't kill him, I go kill him. And then I go kill you.
Then me gonna kill him. Then me gonna kill you. I was like, where's there? Look at all this emotion. Where's this emotion from our lead character?
I want Hatcher dead. I want his family dead.
This guy's like a fucking like firecracker, man. It's insane.
I just loved how he broke the leg off and beat his own guy. Not even the guy who was the messenger. This was just the guy who was he was just the closest guy, and this poor guy, he just gets beat. You're just like,
oh god.
That's what I love about Screwface, though. He just was unpredictable. You're just like, oh damn.
And I can picture like everyone else in the scene, like waiting for him to flip out, like they know it's coming, because he just like keeps playing dominoes and he's just like seething for like a few seconds, and then that table goes flying, man. Dominoes are everywhere. Oh man. And his delivery was just so on point, man. It's like, if you can't kill him, then me gonna kill him. Then me gonna kill you. This guy is fucking awesome. Oh god. Oh.
Yes. Gotta love Screwface. He's just so every scene he chews up every scene he's in.
Yeah. Then we get more of Screwface because then they go and attack they attack his sister.
Right.
He calls because he's like, he knows trouble's coming. He's like, where's the cop? The cop's not there. And then he drives over there. And as he's driving there, Screwface goes in, and his sister like fights off the guys for a while, but then Screwface comes in and she's like crying and screaming. He's like, stop the blood clot crying. Everybody must dead.
Stop the blood clot crying. Everybody must dead.
Then Seagal comes in, and then but after like he does some like blood voodoo.
He tried to do some blood voodoo on her, but didn't quite finish the ritual or something.
And then we get more Seagal running. This one's even worse because I think like, I don't know if maybe they didn't shoot the movie sequentially, but they definitely shot the Mexican scene before this.
Yeah.
Because his arms weren't flailing in this scene, but his arms weren't moving at all. He looked like a caveman running. It's like somebody said, hey, your arms are moving funny. So he's like, fuck it, I'm just not going to move my arms at all. And his arms are just like pasted to the side of his body, and his legs are moving. And he just looks like so fucking weird, man. As he runs out of this car like a fucking caveman. I'm like, somebody definitely got to him at this point in the production about his arm moving. So, he runs in and whatever. So,
yeah. Well, and then he runs in. They went after his sister, and so then we get he's going to go after him, and so he tried to track him down. And they said he's in Jamaica then, because he like flew
before they get to Jamaica, there's a good action scene. This is the one.
That's right. Yeah.
So then he goes after the drug dealers. Now they take the war to the drug dealers, and then we get another one-liner from Seagal, and he's like, "Yeah, you want some blow?" He's like, "Yeah, keep your hands where they are. I'm gonna blow I'm gonna blow off your head."
You want some blow? Yeah, I want some blow. Put your hands where I can see them. I'm gonna blow your head off.
But even I said that with more emotion than he did.
You did that.
Yeah. And then we get this like you said, this is 90, but this was like pretty much an 80s action sequence.
Yeah.
They're like driving on the sidewalk and they're knocking, pedestrians are running out of the way. They didn't knock over a literal fruit stand, but they basically knocked over fruit stands, as they're driving, like shit you'd see in the 80s or before. And then they have this big fight in a jewelry store.
Yep.
This is my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can clearly tell they just let the actors ad-lib their dialogue. Because it was the shit talking by these Jamaicans was the best thing in any Seagal movie ever.
See what? When kill your little blood clot.
Man, it's Chewy. It's Chewy. We gonna blood clot kill him. It's Chewy and one of him. They were just like ad-libbing these crazy lines.
The blood clot I run for. A one white and two brother, Kick this little blood clot up in battle, you see.
And running at Seagal, and he's just like waving his hands and breaking arms and limbs and just like cracks and just killing them and breaking bones. It was just funny, man. The lines they were ad-libbing, they just seemed like they were having so much fun.
Yeah, bad boy. Me a carve you now, boy. Me a carve you.
Yeah, it's a fun scene. You could tell they kind of let loose with this. They were kind of setting up for this because it is probably one of the biggest action scenes, both with the car chase and with the location where they're fighting once they finally get there. All bad shots, though. All of them. Good guys, bad guys. Nobody could hit the broadside of a barn with a gun.
Yeah.
Because they aren't that far away from each other, and they're shooting, and they're missing everything. They're shooting walls, they're shooting doors of cars, they're shooting statues, everything but each other.
I'm gonna make my work harder for me because I keep referencing other movies that I have to splice in cuts of. But have you ever seen UFH or
UHF?
UHF.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There was this one scene where Weird Al Yankovic made fun of these type of scenes.
Yep.
Where it's just like this guy shooting a gun at Rambo, a machine gun, and he's like, and you're thinking the guy's like far away. Then they shoot a wide shot, and they're literally like right next to each other. They're literally like face to face with each other, and this guy's like shooting off this machine gun, just like inches away from him, and then he just like pulls back his bow and arrow and just like blows the guy up.
Yeah,
but it's basically this. It's like they're inches away from him with like what do you call it? The guns that fire a lot of bullets at once.
The machine guns or the Uzis.
There's a term for like rapid fire.
The automatic guns or the semi-automatics.
Yeah, whatever the term is. But the machine guns and all these rapid fire guns that they're shooting at them, and they just can't touch them. Both
the heroes and the villains in this scene can't shoot anybody, and our heroes are supposed to be soldiers, trained guys, and they use all their bullets and then they go to hand. Yeah. It's just hilarious. But the bone breaking is just that was like a staple of Seagal movies. It's just like the bone breaks, because I don't think I ever saw that in a movie before Seagal. And he just he does it in like almost every fight scene. He's just like breaking arms and legs constantly. I forgot which one of the four that you mentioned, which one it is. Maybe it was for Out for Justice, I think. There is a scene, though, where he uses a shotgun and he shoots the guy in the knee and totally blows the lower half of the guy's leg. I remember that quite a bit. But yeah, breaking limbs and removing limbs and such seems to be his signature thing. But I mean, that you do get a fun hand-to-hand scenes, which is what people really want to see. You're not watching Seagal movies for the gunfights. You want to watch him go hand-to-hand with these folks and beat the crap out of them that way. Yeah, this jewelry store scene is the reason you pay to watch this movie. Right. If you didn't enjoy this, you shouldn't be watching the movie. It was fucking awesome. Because he takes the one guy and he smashes him through like every display case that's left that hasn't been shot up already. Yeah, he just takes him by the head and
every single display. It's again, what did the jewelry store owner do to you?
Yeah.
That you have to destroy every display case. To knock this guy out, you know? You basically have him where you want him. Just break a limb. He's just like, no, I'm going to break every single goddamn display case with this guy's head. So, but yeah, this is the last action sequence, I think, before they go to Jamaica.
Yeah.
But before they go there, they do have this really cool montage. This is another good sequence. I think parts of this was in the trailer as well, where they're like making bullets and testing out the semi-automatic weapons. And I think semi-automatic was the term I was looking for.
Yeah.
They're testing out all these weapons, and the montage where it's pretty cool.
It's the A-Team montage where you get in a lot of action films where, yeah, they're arming up. You know, they can't go buy bullets. They make their own because they don't trust, I guess, store-bought bullets. So they got to...
Well, you saw how the store-bought bullet worked in a jewelry store.
That's true. These are more accurate bullets. Those other ones, those are those store-bought ones. No, we're going to make our own. They shoot a lot straighter. Yeah, and he makes his own silencer, too. I'm just sitting here going, I'm like, okay, you could have, you know, whatever. You know, it made for a great scene. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun scene because I like these scenes because they serve a purpose. They get the audience pumped up. You're like, oh, this, you know, some shit's going to go down. I mean, you know, this is why you're watching it. Some stuff is really going to go down, and it does. They hop a quick plane to Jamaica. It doesn't take them long at all to get to Jamaica.
Yeah. And when they get there, there's this meta song playing because Jimmy Cliff, who I love, he's singing this song, which is really good. And on the credits, like on the song, Seagal has a credit. So I don't know if he helped write it or something because he's not singing on the song or anything like that. But it's a cool song. But Jimmy Cliff mentions Screwface's name in the song.
Screwface, you know that your time has come. You don't do right, you're gonna dead tonight.
But he's in the movie. Are you singing about a character in the movie, you know? It's a little too meta there, Jimmy Cliff, you know? I'm like, he's singing about how, like, Screwface is this bad guy, and you're going to get him, and it's like, Jimmy, no. Pick another song to sing in the movie, you know? It's a little too meta, you know? Unless they, I don't know. Yeah. And it's just the song was so good they had to put it in there. But it's a good song that could play as part of the score or the soundtrack, where it's just like the characters aren't hearing it, but we're hearing it. It's just like playing over a montage. But this is a song that's playing in the scene that the characters are hearing. So it's kind of weird him singing about Screwface and Screwface getting killed in the movie. But it's a good song, though. So.
It's a great song. I love the song. And I think maybe they did
John Crow is the name of it, by the way.
Yeah, John Crow.
Look it up.
Yeah, I love the song, and you get to hear it again at the credits. Yeah, you're right. He mentioned Screwface. Maybe they were trying to go for the fact of that was the reach of Screwface and the fact that they're singing about him because he's that big.
But then they'd be singing about how big and bad he is, not how
that's true.
This Crow guy is going to kill him.
That's true. You're very true. Yeah. Yeah, that whole scene of how they tracked down where Screwface is, I'm like sitting here going, you needed to talk to her to find out.
Basically a sexy girl starts dancing, and then moments later she's talking to Seagal. And they cut a lot of his dialogue. This feels like a scene where they cut out a lot of his dialogue.
Yeah.
Because it's just him staring at her. Then they're sitting together and she's talking to him. So we don't get him talking to her initially. They just cut to the second scene with her. And the second scene with her, she's answering a question that we don't hear him ask. So I just think, like, at this point, I'm just thinking of this movie sequentially. They're like, fuck it, man. I'm tired of this guy and his monotone acting. Let's just cut his fucking dialogue out. Let's just have him stare at her with his vacant eyes and have her do all the talking. You know? Because basically it's like, wait a minute, you're answering a question that we didn't hear asked? You know? It's like, there was no introduction to you guys. It's like, I was like, fuck it. You know?
Well, and the other thing too, this whole scene, I mean, we get the great song and everything. It's the whole purpose is to have the rather attractive woman who used to be with Screwface, you know, and Seagal, Hatch's character, talking to her. That's the whole scene, because this could have been handled in like a minute. Screwface has a compound, and they needed to talk to someone in order to find it. I'm like,
a compound with guys with like heavy machinery weapons patrolling it like Scarface's mansion. You know?
Right? You couldn't tell me you couldn't flip a, you know,
or you could go to the local cops or something. And...
yeah, local cops are a $5 to the local kid going, hey, you know where Screwface's compound is? I'm not going to tell you, man. Here's like $20 or something. Oh, it's over. You know, it's like...
Or let me ask this guy singing about Screwface too.
Yeah, or ask the guy singing about Screwface. But yeah, you know, it was like, you think maybe it's some kind of hidden compound or something, like, you know, a cave hideout or anything. No, it's like this big, huge villa with the guards and everything. And I'm like, you needed someone to tell you where it is.
Yeah. But it's a good scene though, because we got to hear the song, which is good. We got to see Jimmy Cliff. Harder They Come. Yeah, we got to see a pretty girl do some exposition, and Seagal didn't talk. Check. You know?
She did better acting in those couple of minutes that he had throughout the whole film. So there you go. You know?
Good point. Touche, my friend.
Well, you know what? They needed her because she had to drop the line of he has 4 eyes and 2 tongues.
No, he has 4 eyes and 2 heads.
2 heads. I'm sorry, 2 heads, not 2 tongues. Yeah, 2 heads. Yeah. 4 eyes and 2 heads. And I'm just like,
well, maybe you're right. Maybe because she was with him, right? So she knows about his tongue work.
she might.
She's like, oh my God, his tongues.
Screwface have 2 heads and 4 eyes, and that is the secret to his magic.
It was all over my body.
There was like 8 of them. It was like there was 8 of them. Oh my God.
Yeah, but they needed that line. Screwface has 2 faces and 4 eyes.
Yeah, and I'm like sitting here going, okay, I know what that twist is, and the whole audience is going, okay, we know what that twist is, but Seagal, it's like Hatch. Nope.
Actually, to be fair, he always has that look on his face, so we don't know what he's thinking. To be fair, he always has that vacant look on his face. So
it's true.
He could literally be thinking anything.
Like he's bored. He's just he looks like he's bored.
Yeah, or constipated or something.
Or that. Yeah.
So we get them breaking into the mansion, like you said, or the villa or whatever, and they shoot it up and they kill a bunch of people, and then they capture Seagal. There are 2 things about Seagal movies. 4 things about Seagal movies. The vacant eyes, the monotone line readings,
right?
The bone breaking, and the no selling. He's like Goldberg. Are you familiar with wrestling?
Oh yeah, I love Goldberg, but he couldn't sell. He didn't sell much. No.
It's not that he couldn't sell; it's that he didn't sell.
He didn't sell, yeah.
He's basically like Goldberg. He just no sells everything. You do all your big moves on him, and he's just gonna pop up like nothing happened. So these like 8 guys like surround him and capture him, and they couldn't even capture him for like 2 minutes. No. It's like all of them are like, it took like an army of them to subdue him, first of all. And then after they subdued him, they didn't cut him. He's not bleeding. He's not hurt in any way. He was never knocked out. It's just that there were so many that they overpowered him. And then they tie him up, and he still breaks off the ropes and then beats them all up. He doesn't even need rescuing. He has 2 buddies. They could have had a scene where the buddies like showed like they're more than wallpaper, and they could have rescued him. His buddies don't rescue him. He just breaks out of the rope and then beats up all the guys anyway. And then he kills Screwface in like 2 seconds by using
the Screwface
sword to cut off his head.
Nice sword.
I'm breaking out all the props.
I say you're breaking out all the props. Wow.
So he like, I love this scene, even though it was really abrupt, because basically he uses a sword to like give him a Ric Flair crotch chop, if we're gonna keep referencing wrestling. He uses a sword to like chop off his nuts, or like right in the middle, and then chops off his head. And then kills him in like a minute. And like, even if you haven't figured out the twist at this point, he killed him so quickly.
Oh yeah.
Even for Seagal quickly, that you have to think something's up. And then he goes to another compound with a bunch of other Jamaicans, and then shows off Screwface's head, say, hey, Screwface is dead. And then one of the sidekick black guys gets killed. Keith David at least had a character. This other guy, the other cop,
yeah, the Jamaican cop, yeah.
His only function was to say, Screwface went to Jamaica. And then, and then
much.
That's it. Then they had to go to Jamaica. He just basically got them to Jamaica. A reason for them to go to
Jamaica. Yeah, that was his only purpose, unfortunately. Which is sad.
I love the location change.
Oh yeah.
Because the movie, like, you get Mexico, Chicago, Jamaica. I love all of that. But honestly, there was no reason for him to go to Jamaica.
No,
honestly,
there wasn't. I'm like, he went back to Jamaica. I'm like, okay, well, take care of all the Jamaican guys in town. Your threat is done. Why do you got to go to Jamaica?
There's no reason for them to follow him, but there's no reason for the script to have a location change. I liked it.
Oh yeah,
the location change was kind of. It wasn't a necessity. Like it was just like, let's just go to a Jamaican vacation. Like you said, in the executive meeting, somebody wanted a free trip to Jamaica.
We'll take the whole production company, and my wife will be a grip. Yeah, that's it.
What, sir? Wait a minute. Can my wife be a grip too?
If you
all our wives are grips.
All our wives are grips. If you approve this budget, yes. All right, that's approved.
All these executives are in Jamaica. But it's kind of odd. Like, I like the location change, but it just seemed like an odd thing to do. But yeah, so the big twist is Screwface has a twin brother, and it's just basically the two of them. But then, like, if they were going to make it seem like it was just all like, trick of the hand type stuff, then why have like the whole thing where he kills the other woman early on, where like, she's trying to do like her voodoo on him and he's doing why have that voodoo battle early on where you have all this mysticism if you're just going to say at the end it was all just a trick of the hand, so it's kind of odd.
It is. It's odd. They were trying to be, you felt like they were trying to be clever with their villain, going, we're doing something different. They're twins. But then you're thinking about going, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because both the twins acted the same. There's no difference between them because obviously you got the same guy playing, both parts. And they're both Screwface, but I would have liked to see at least a little bit of difference. Otherwise, I'm like, why'd you do that? Maybe a little hint for you to go, oh, yeah, okay, that's why that scene was like that, and now he's like this. But no, they're exactly the same. Why make them, twins? It just, you didn't need the Jamaican scene to get to the finale here. You could cut the Jamaica scene out, and you could still have the last scene in the battle there without, minus the head, but it's
because he killed off one twin so quickly, it kind of deflated the twist.
Yeah.
If it took them, if like they were both challenging, maybe if there was something where it's like defeating both of them played into the end. But like one of them got killed off so quickly, it's like that twist went nowhere because you're just going to get like the one final real battle anyway,
Yeah, you're just going to wait for that other shoe to drop because if you watch any action film, you're like, okay, that was done. Wow, okay, and we aren't rolling from freeze frame to credits yet, so there's more movies, so there's another bad guy. It's just like before there ever is the reveal and. That's the telegraphing of it was just a little bit too blunt for an action film for me. I'm just like, no, it's just like you didn't surprise us at all. Now we finally get a real battle between, you know, the villain and the bad guy, because there's bloodshed by our heroes, because we didn't even have that in the battle at the compound. So you knew probably that wasn't the final one, because no one really got hurt. Like you said, Seagal broke out of the ropes before they could do any ritual. You know, Hatch and him fighting in the sword fight, that was over quick. So you're like, no, there's got to be more. You're hoping there is, because you're like, otherwise the movie's only like an hour and 15 minutes, and I paid $5, damn it. We're talking 1990 here. So I paid $5, damn it, for my ticket.
Yeah. I will have to give one quick eulogy for Screwface #1 that died. He did have a good line before he died very quickly with the crotch chop and the decapitation. Seagal says, "Fuck you." And he's like, "You's a woman? You's a dog after a bone, and you have no teeth."
Fuck you. You a woman? You know what you is. You is a dog after a bone, and you have no teeth.
I was like, wow, that's a great line. But yeah, before he died, he did have like a good line. Screwface 2 didn't have any good lines, but the movie did get really cartoonish at the end, where it's like, you could kind of like say it's a little bit plausible from a fighting standpoint, where if it's like, yeah, Seagal's breaking a lot of bones, but even at the time, he was doing the talk show circuit, and he was even on like Arsenio Hall, and he was talking disparagingly about other action heroes and other fighting styles, and he was really talking about Aikido and like how great it is. So even if you want to buy into it, like, okay, Aikido is this great style, and he could really do this, and it's realistic that he could break all these bones. Even if you bought all of that, the ending fight was super cartoonish, where it's like he's poking out the guy's eyes out, like it's like a action, not an action, like a horror comedy,
like a
or something.
horror, yeah.
You know, he's like squeezing his eyeballs out. Who's one of those horror guys that does like really like gory, campy stuff?
Well, it would have been like a Herschel.
Did like Meet the Feebles?
Yeah, like a Herschel Gordon Lewis or early Peter Jackson from.
Yeah, like Peter Jackson, I think, did Meet the Feebles, or like the Evil Dead stuff. It was like kind of something like you would see in a movie like that. The eye gouge, because it was a super fake head, and his fingers go like deep into the eyes. It's like, what are we doing here? And then like they break through like a concrete wall.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like you know, some people jump out windows and that's not realistic, but at least it's a window. This was like, when they broke through the wall, this was like a thick concrete wall. There was like chalk going everywhere. This was a huge, thick concrete wall. And it wasn't nothing but the force of those two. It wasn't like any other force besides one guy pushing another guy into the wall. And then they break a concrete wall. Then he picks him up and breaks his back on his knee. Then he throws him down an elevator shaft. And then it's like, what? When did this turn into a cartoon, you know?
Well, I love the fall down the elevator shaft. You're right, it's a cartoon because it's a shitty dummy moment, because this is completely like just this rag doll that goes down the elevator shaft, and it's just the limbs are just like flopping all over the place.
Yeah, it's just like the violence was like it was kind of realistic up until that point, but like the concrete wall, then the wooden wall, and the breaking the back on the knee and elevator, it was just too much. The eye pokes.
The tough thing with doing the eye pokes is you've seen that in action films before, but he went, like you mentioned, all horror, because usually in action films they start pressing on the eyes, but they never like get in, and so the guy will knock the hands away then. But
usually, like what you're saying is they'll push into the actor's eyes,
right?
And then the actor will react in pain, but the thumbs will just be on the eyes, and it's a real head.
Right.
And like you said, they're not going into it, you know?
Yeah, and usually he'll break out and there'll be a little blood, but the guy can kind of see. At the point where he actually pops Screwface's eyes with his thumbs, you're like, okay, well, he's no longer a threat. I'm just like, you literally just gouged both eyes to where he's completely blind, and yet you're going to beat the crap out of him for a while. And like, you could just let him walk around for a while. He'll probably just fall down the elevator shaft.
No, he has to knock him through a concrete wall, then a wooden wall, and then break his back on his knee, and then throw him down an elevator shaft. It's all necessary.
I know. In a film like this, it is all necessary. I mean, yeah. Well, that's so that his followers could see that he got, impaled and he doesn't come back from the dead. And so that ends supposedly the Jamaican, the gang, because they're going to disband now because the one guy, the Screwface is dead and he's not immortal. Well, they're like, oh crap. Well,
or as he's walking away, they could just shoot him in the back.
Yeah, or yeah, because they didn't kill all the guys.
As he's walking off into the sunset with the dead Jamaican cop in his hands.
With the very he's carrying.
That's just a weird visual where like Keith David is limping beside him, and he has the dead Jamaican cop in his hands, like a groom carrying his bride, into the house or something. It's just like. It's so effeminate, it's just a weird shot.
Well, it's a weird way to end it too. I mean, you could have ended it from there. You could have ended it like at a funeral scene or something, but no, they just, him.
Or like showing that like the niece is well again in the hospital or.
Yeah, but no, the last scene, what you're left with when the credits, just before the credits roll, is Steven Seagal carrying this body very, like you said, just like, he lost his lover and Keith David limping behind him. And then it just credits roll. And you're like, what'd you run out of money or something? Come on. It's like, but I mean, as far as like these kind of ultra violent type ones that are fun, and it sounds weird, but it is because, it's just the same way with horror films. People go, well, how can you watch those horror films? And I'm like, because when you're watching a horror film, it's so over the top and ridiculous. It's fake. So you can relax a little because versus a more realistic action film, which is more like a gritty crime drama that's going to disturb the hell out of you and make you check over your shoulder as you're walking home at night. It's like, I don't necessarily want that out of my action film. I want a Seagal film because that's what you're going for. You're going to see what over the top stunts and action scenes you're going to get, because it is a little bit of a rush, but by the end of it, everybody got up, walked away. Well, except in this one, you're left with a weird image. Usually it's a happy image or an upbeat, hey, or you end on a one-liner or something. And in this
this movie would have been better. As much as I shit on his acting, I think his monotone performance for the last line actually worked, because after all the cartoonish ways that he killed this guy, or like he hurt him at the end, his one line at the end was like, I hope they weren't triplets.
Yeah. Yeah. And
they should have ended the movie right there.
You just end right there. Freeze frame, credits.
Right after that line, either freeze frame or go to black and just blast that last song.
Yes.
It's like right after he said, let's blast the song and just go off into the sunset,
Just like that, because you know that way it leaves it just a little of a bit of enigma. Maybe the Jamaican cop isn't completely dead. Yeah,
you're right. We could hold out hope that he's not dead.
You could hope he's not dead, and but end on the one liner. That's the way you usually end these things. But no, not the whole martyr walk. It's I mean,
and we don't care about that Jamaican character anyway, because we didn't follow. I mean, if Keith David would have died, that would have been different,
right?
Because we cared about his character. You could have not written in that Jamaican character at all. You could have easily gotten them to Jamaica with any number of ways,
his is definitely a character it serves really no purpose, because many other ways you could write out how to get to Jamaica.
And like him, if Keith David would have been the one that got killed, then we saw the cartoonish ways that he was going after Screwface.
Yeah.
It would have made more sense because he's just so fucking pissed that you killed his best friend that he just doesn't want to kill you. He wants to hurt you. He wants to coke your goddamn eyes out and kill you and kill you again. You know, so then it would make more sense, you know, but then he wouldn't show you the passion, but you would imagine the passion in your head.
His eyes would get narrower. They get a little narrow.
Squint a little bit more.
He'd get a little bit squintier. He'd be like, you know.
Oh God.
Oh.
This was fun though. I like this. This was a fun watch. It wasn't too long. It was like around 90 minutes, and that included credits. So I don't know. I had fun watching this. Honestly, like I said, these movies are so interchangeable. It could have been any one of his movies we watched. Whichever one would have won, I would have been fine with, and I probably would have had just as much fun. Because I think you mentioned early in the review, these movies are all the same.
Oh, yeah.
So much interchange about these early Seagal movies that one is just as good as the other. So
yeah, just because you're going there, it's expectations. You know, you kind of knew what you're getting into, especially at this time period when you saw a Seagal film. You paid your admission, you knew what you're going to see. You know, it wasn't anything too expected or shocking, but that's what you wanted. It's like comfort food. This was like comfort food. The Seagal films were for back then. So when you went there, you kind of knew what you were getting, but that's why you went there, because you enjoy that. You knew you would probably 99.9% enjoy the Seagal film because you knew what you were going to expect, you know. And does that mean that it's a fantastic film? You know, art is subjective. I think these are popcorn entertainment films. These aren't being made at all to be some kind of groundbreaking, oh my God, you know, next best thing. These are just, they're comfort food, basically.
Yeah. If I had to tell you, like, just 5 of my favorite movies, not the 5, not a definitive list, but like some of my favorite movies are 2001: A Space Odyssey, Solaris by Tarkovsky, Seven Samurai.
Oh,
these are some of my favorite films. I probably watched them 2-3 times each. Rocky IV, 1989 Batman.
Oh yeah.
Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, God,
these are movies I've watched dozens and dozens of times. They wouldn't even crack my top 100 list. But like you said, you want comfort food sometimes. And like you said, this is comfort food.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a reason why I've watched Maximum Overdrive more than Seven Samurai. Okay, because Maximum Overdrive, it's short, it's ridiculous, it's comfort food, and by the end of it, I'm just smiling because I just enjoyed like 80 minutes of just, you know, Stephen King on cocaine. You know, I mean, that's you know, and I think you're you know, what you said is a prime example. You can enjoy both, and I think some people forget that you can enjoy the really well done, well crafted Seven Samurai 2001 and
But that's an experience when you watch those movies,
right?
It's like going to the museum or going to the movies. You know, it's like
right.
When you go to the museum, you're going to be thinking. It's an event. You want to be prepared. You want to you want to be on your P's and Q's because you know what you're about to experience has layers,
right? And
you want to experience all of those layers. When you're watching movies like this, there are no layers.
it's a puddle, man. It's a shallow puddle, and you're just playing in it.
It's dumb, and it makes you dumber watching it, maybe. And as stupid as you think it is, when you watch it, you're like, man, I thought that was stupid. It's actually stupider than I thought it was.
Man, that was dumb. And then a week later, you're going, man, I want to watch something. I'll throw this in. What the hell?
Yeah. This is at the top of the list of those type of movies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I probably, if his movies weren't so interchangeable, I probably like, if he only had like the first 4 movies, Out for Justice, whatever,
Right.
I'm going to try and name them, and I'm going to end up coming up with the fake names that I made up. So I won't even try to name them. I'll be like, Lust for Vengeance, Mark for Dead, instead of Mark for Dead. But his first 4 movies, if it would have just been 1 or 2, I would have probably have rewatched them even more. But because they're so interchangeable, you don't watch them as much because it's like, all right, which one do I even pick? You know, it's like, it's like, but they're just as rewatchable as anything. You know, any of your favorite popcorn movies. So whoever's seen it, I definitely suggest whatever your memories are, stick with those memories. It's just as fun as it was. Getting older, you're gonna think, oh, maybe I can't believe I like that stupid movie. No, you'll still like it. Trust me.
Oh yeah. It's turn your brain off fun. So it's what it is. So
yeah. All right, man. Anything else you want to cover, or are we good with this?
No, I think we've covered the bases. We probably have given it more attention than it probably deserves.
Oh man, I am so sweaty under this wig. But hey, I had fun doing this. I had fun watching it. So it's good to do this again with you. A lot of fun. And one of these days we got to get this. We got to make sure the review isn't longer than the movies.
We'll definitely work on that. I'll work on that as well. So.
All right, Mark. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, you bet. Talk to you later.
All right, later.
I hope they weren't triplets.